There is absolutely no doubt that we've seen a fundamental shift over the past 10, 15 years or so in terms of some of the traits that are prioritized at the quarterback position in the National Football League. You know, it used to be the statuesque 6'4", 6'5" pocket passer was all the rage. Now it's about those multi-purpose dual threat types of guys that can cause as much damage, if not more so, with their feet and their athleticism, their mobility, their running ability, as they can do with their arm. And it makes sense. Like, you want a guy that can impact the game in multiple ways. And when you look at today's NFL, you know, you worry about those guys that are really kind of lead-footed in the pocket, that can't move a whole lot because it requires the structure to be great around them. And if the structure breaks down, are they going to have some troubles and some problems? You know, and it can create some limitations for you offensively and take away some things that an opposing defense might have to defend for. So it makes sense that the importance on the running game, the importance on that dual threat mobility and athleticism has become a bigger and bigger thing, and it's certainly not going to stop. But I do think it is very important for us to remember that at the end of the day, that no matter how mobile somebody is, no matter how great of an athlete they are at the quarterback position, no matter how much they can run, at the end of the day, you're not winning championships on the back of that quarterback just with their running ability. You're just not. They have to be able to throw the football. And even in modern NFL game, there is still a place for the somewhat immobile pocket passer who can shred teams with their arm. Because that's the most important thing about the quarterback position, is being able to throw the football, not run the football. So I can imagine, like, as people start to look at Carson Strong from Nevada more closely over the next several months, like, it's going to be one of the big things that sticks out in his game. It's going to be the one thing that a lot of folks gravitate to. And I get it, because in some ways it can be a little limiting to your offense. In some ways, it doesn't open up as many possibilities. In some ways, it impacts like how quickly they can adapt and adjust to the NFL game, because a Carson Strong can't go out there and when shit breaks down, go scramble for the first down or go make a big momentum-changing play happen with his feet. Like, he's got to make it work as a passer or it's not going to work at all. You don't have the time to sit there and get by with some of the bad things on the passing end, because this guy can really run and he can do some dynamic things. But again, you still have to be able to throw the football. And Carson Strong can absolutely throw the football. He's one of the few quarterbacks in this class, potentially in 2022, that has closer to that prototype size that you're looking for. Like, you could say this is, you talk about the 2022 NFL draft, it's the land of, shorties, really. It's a bunch of 6 foot, 6'1", maybe stretching at 6'2" quarterbacks. So you get a dude that's closer to 6'4", he's going to stand out a little bit from the pack. He's got some starting experience, which some other guys that he would be compared against in this class don't have the experience that he does in terms of number of games played, number of starts made. And he was a guy that played in the air raid offense this past year in Nevada and completed 70% of his passes, had a great touchdown to interception ratio. And he has a lot of other strengths that he kind of brings to the table too. I mentioned that prototype size, which, you know what, at the end of the day, how much does that really matter? But if you had your choice, would you rather take someone that's 6 foot and 210 pounds or 6'4", 215, 220? You know what I mean? Like, you'd rather take the bigger dude because you think they might be able to more easily hold up at the NFL level. He's also got that easy arm strength that he can make all the required NFL throws. In fact, sometimes I don't even think we've seen like the true pop and velocity in his arm because of some of the mechanical things. But it is apparent and obvious that he has the easy arm strength to make all those required NFL throws. He shows very good anticipation and touch on the deep throw. Like, he doesn't wait for the guy to get open deep. He's able to see it, recognize it quickly, and react to it. And the touch, the combination of velocity and touch that he could put on the deep ball, he's a legit threat as a quarterback to be a home run hitter. He's the type of quarterback that you could count on to stretch opposing defenses. Like, I believe, if you look at this from an analytics standpoint, from a deep ball perspective, specifically 20 yards plus or even 30 yards plus, like, I got to imagine amongst the college football quarterbacks, he's got to be at or near the very, very top of the list based off of what I saw. because his touch on the deep throw was outstanding. Other places, not so much, but we'll get to that in a moment. I will say this, he is able to buy time within the pocket, and he's willing to hang tough. Like, if you can't scramble around like crazy and you're not going to be a big threat as a runner, then you need to be able to do those small kind of nuanced things. You got to be able to extend plays within the confines of the pocket. You got to be able to buy time. You got to be able to move up, move back, move left, move right. You got to be able to find those throwing lanes, and I saw Carson Strong in 2020 be able to do that. He's also able to consistently and fluidly work through his progressions. Like, you would see it on film a lot. Starts left, quick, come back. Starts right, quick, come back. And other guys that he's going to be compared against in the 2022 draft either don't have that ability now or may never have that ability. He has that higher level processor in terms of being able to quickly get off of his primary and move to his other reads. Now, that doesn't automatically make you a great quarterback, I grant you, but I love the thought that this is a guy with some starting experience that's going to get another year of starting experience, may get even better in that case. He's be one of those quarterbacks that'd be really hard to game plan as a passer because you do have to defend the entire field. Just like any young quarterback, he certainly has weaknesses that are very evident. The first one I've already talked about with Carson Strong is he's not much of an athlete. He's got below average foot speed and agility. I mean, you would see him run a little bit at Nevada, but that was more out of desperation, or it was just so wide open and obvious that he had no choice but to take it. But he is not somebody at the NFL level that you're going to be counting on to use his legs. He's not going to be somebody you count on to roll out of the pocket a lot, even on bootlegs. You're not somebody who's going to make a lot of sense for you to deploy in a lot of RPO. Like, just want to stay away from that part of the game because at this point it's certainly not a strength of his. One thing that does concern me more is that lack of athleticism I can live with. The ball placement, though, in the short and intermediate areas, that's concerning. He's got lots of low throws in the short area. And then, ironically enough, when you talk about the 10 to 20-yard passes, he's got a lot of high throws. Like, the low throws are one thing. That's something you could just talk about. That's more of like a feel and instinct standpoint, like an actual natural throwing ability kind of thing that you can work on and improve upon with work. But it's the intermediate stuff that worries me more because a lot of those throws are high. He's going to get wide receivers killed at the NFL level if that continues. And I think that speaks to some of the challenges in terms of his mechanics, specifically his lower body and his feet. And that's what leads to a lot of those throws being high. When I mentioned just a moment ago about his footwork and his lower body, he needs to improve setting his feet and throwing from a solid base, especially sometimes when he gets some pressure in his face. He forgets all about his feet and he doesn't keep the integrity of his entire throwing mechanics. He doesn't utilize his lower body very well. Even when you look at some of the dropbacks that he had, there was more like a hop as opposed to actual steps. So he's going to need some work on his footwork. There's no question about it. I'd also say he could do a better job to get rid of the ball quicker to avoid some of the sacks. Like, it's great that he's able to buy time within the pocket. He's willing to hang tough. But then there's sometimes, he generally makes good decisions. Sometimes I would like to see him make the decision a little quicker. Get rid of the fucking football. Dump it off to your check down option. Take what the defense gives you or doesn't give you and you bail out, you go move on to the next play. He takes too many sacks, which you'll see with, some of these bigger quarterbacks that can't really move. Like, there are good things about that and sometimes there are bad things, and that is one of them. Now, as I was watching him, I got this combination, of a couple of different guys that he reminded me of a little bit. I saw some Drew Bledsoe in him. I saw some Carson Palmer in him. And I think the one that he probably reminds me the most of, although it's not a perfect comparison, is probably Big Ben Roethlisberger. Specifically, when I'm thinking about Big Ben back in his Miami of Ohio days. But you could tell, I guess, based off of that comparison, that I'm pretty big on Carson Strong. And while the accuracy piece concerns me, I think some of the mechanical stuff can fix some of that. When you talk about the lack of athleticism, is that somebody you really want to take number one overall? Well, at the end of the day, if he can fucking shred a defense as a passer, that's still the most important trait and characteristic to have. He's got that size that you look for at the position, even though that's not the most important thing. You can't pretend like it doesn't matter at all. He's got the arm strength to make all the required throws. He's got phenomenal touch on his deep ball. He's able to buy time within the pocket. He hangs tough. He works through his progressions, making the defense have to defend the entire field, meaning he gets the most out of the weapons around him. Like when I look at Carson Strong right now, at this moment, based off of the quarterbacks that I've watched so far, he's my QB1 going into the 2022 NFL draft. He really is. Do I expect him to stay there? I don't know about that. Because I think at least one or two of the dual threat mobile guys will develop more as a passer in 2021. And then their upside is going to be too appealing. And, Carson Strong will drop a little bit. But when I look at him as, like, if you were saying the draft was held now, based off of who's the most finished complete prospect, Carson Strong, to me, is the most finished and complete prospect. It's going to be really interesting to watch how he plays and develops at Nevada in 2021. Because if he has a big year and he works on some of these flaws, you're talking about a guy that could very easily be in the mix to go number 1 overall in the 2022 NFL draft. But for now, for me, I would put more of maybe like a top 10, maybe at worst top 15 grade on him. But yeah, Carson Strong right now, I'll double down on this. At this moment, he's my QB1.